Okay. Would you like me to introduce you a little bit, or did you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself? And
I can do that. I kind of have it right into my PowerPoint here. So,
okay. All
all
right.
right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping you all had a wonderful lunch break, got something good to eat, and are not feeling too sleepy to sit through a session with me this afternoon. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint here. So hopefully everyone can see that pretty well. This afternoon, we are going to be discussing mindfulness. And I know that that seems to be kind of a big thing that we're hearing about here recently. And I have just recently developed this training. So you guys are actually the first ones that get to hear it. So that's kind of exciting too. All right, so a little bit about me. My background is in education. I'm a licensed pre-K through third grade teacher. I did that for a little while. I worked in a private preschool. I've worked in childcare. I worked in the school system. But I ended up coming into the mental health field. And so about 12 years ago, I started as an early childhood mental health consultant. And I've been in that field ever since. We recently added the infant early childhood mental health to it. So that's pretty exciting that that's a new thing for the state of Ohio as well. Throughout my time in mental health, I've worked as a consultant. I've done parent education. I work with teachers. I have done dinosaur school. If any of you have ever heard of dinosaur school, I've done that as well. And then about 6 years ago, we started with the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant, which pulled me in as a trainer. And now I'm on the Whole Child Matters grant, and I am a master trainer for Northwest Ohio. I cover 18 counties, and so typically pre-pandemic, I did a lot of traveling. Now I do a lot of training on Zoom, which is kind of neat too, because that helps us I see a lot of people from all over the state that I wouldn't have gotten to train otherwise. I do have a certification in mindfulness and meditation, which is what led me to want to develop this training. Here at home, I have 3 kids that are all at home right now doing their remote learning. So that's really exciting. My youngest is 8, my middle child is 13, and my oldest is 18. And I also want to just give you all a heads up that I have 3 dogs in my house too. So we let them outside and put them down for a nap prior to starting this training this afternoon. So hopefully they stay quiet. They are all huskies. So sometimes when they hear me talking, they think I'm talking to them, and they like to talk back. So if you hear a little background disturbance from the dogs, I will just quietly wait for them to be quiet and then continue with the training today. So, as we're working from home, giving each other a little bit of grace is very, very important, because our home lives sometimes come into our professional lives as well. Today, what we're really going to be looking at, I'm going to define mindfulness. And we're really going to talk about what it is and what are the benefits of it. And then we are going to look at what's the difference between mindfulness and meditation. Then we're going to look at the 4 foundations of mindfulness and look at some strategies to implement. So that sounds like a lot of information to get in an hour. We are going to end our hour session with a mindfulness activity as well. So you guys, I'm hoping that you leave today with a lot of different ways to implement mindfulness into your everyday life. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define it. And if we look at this definition, it seems pretty simple. It's paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, to the unfolding of experience moment to moment. But when we break that down, you know, paying attention on purpose, what does that really mean? It's really about, it's a practice of self-discovery without judgment. And I think that's the hardest part, right? We cannot judge what's happening. We have to have that conscious awareness of our thoughts and our feelings and the way that we're expressing that, and not judge that. We really are trying to anchor ourselves in the present moment, and it really helps focus our attention and our awareness in a very intentional way. So when we think about our daily lives, there's so many things that are going on. Running a household, those are full of these really mundane tasks, like doing laundry, cleaning. You know, when you're dusting or you're vacuuming, it's pretty mundane. You don't really need to think about that anymore. Making shopping lists, going to the grocery store, these are all things, and what it leads to is disengagement from ourselves. It can make us careless. How many of you have made a shopping list and forgotten something when you go to the grocery store, right? That seems like a very simple way to express that, but that's a careless thing that happens, right? We think of it before we go, and when we get there, we still forget it and have to go back. I do that all the time. Or if you've lost track of time, or you've forgotten what day it is, right? Those are all bits and pieces of things that make us careless because we are not living in the moment. Taking care of our family, having children, significant others, parents, pets, all of those things require attention from us. And sometimes it can lead to a lot of stress. Like I said, I have 3 children, so it seems like I'm constantly trying to manage their homework and their schoolwork when they're going to school. And now that they're working part of the time from home, it seems like even more of that management. And that stress can really lead to some pretty big feelings sometimes, especially when kids aren't doing what we want them to do, right? And it can lead us to function in a different part of our brain. So if we get into an argument with our children or our parents or our significant others and say things we don't mean, that's another example of how we become careless and we become disengaged from ourselves. This can lead to insomnia. How many of you, when you get stressed, are suddenly not sleeping well? Or maybe you're not sleeping enough hours. I wake up a lot during the night when I'm stressed. I might still be in bed for that amount of time that I have set aside, but I'm not sleeping soundly through the night the same way I do when my stress is under control. And so again, we're going to be disconnected from our own thoughts and our own feelings, and our brain is just so overwhelmed it's trying to process all of that while we sleep, which is why we end up with insomnia. Being a teacher, that in and of itself, right, is stressful because you've got all of these little ones with different personalities and different temperaments, and you're trying to get them to be able to become cohesive as a community within your class, trying to teach everyone to get along with others that maybe they don't really blend well with. And for some of us, it's just us in that classroom managing 20 little bodies, right? So we really have to take that into consideration as well. And this doesn't take into account any traumatic events that we ourselves might be coping with. So things like the pandemic, right? That's a traumatic event that we are collectively experiencing right now. Trauma can intensify the negative responses that we have when we don't have a strategy to be able to deal with our own emotions around it. So when we think about that, I love this quote, you grow what you plant, right? So when we have all of these stressful things going on in our world, what happens is we start developing negative feelings. So resentment, anger, sadness, loneliness, all of those things become very prevalent in our emotions. And it can distort our own beliefs and our own self-perceptions. And then what can happen is our body, our subconscious makes associations between these negative thoughts and our bodily sensations. So it leads to like actual pain. It can lead to actual illness. It can create health issues like high blood pressure, hypertension. It lowers our immunity to illness. It can lead to depression and anxiety, poor digestion, and it actually increases the stress. How many of you have ever had, a little bit of stress, but it seems so much bigger than what it really is? What we see then, what others see from us is going to be irritability, impatience, frustration. We start snapping at those that we love. And so if we step back and we ask ourselves the question, is this really what we want to be growing? Is who we are who we want to be? When we have all of these negative emotions going on, it actually changes our brain. We start to become what we think. Our minds are in a constant state of overstimulation. We typically are thinking about things in the past. How many of you go to bed at night thinking about all the things that you didn't get done in a day? And all of the things that are now on your to-do list for tomorrow? Right? Yeah, I see some of you nodding, and it's true. We do this to ourselves all the time. And we really don't live in the present moment very often. Technology has increased this overstimulation and movement. So the human attention span is actually only about 8.25 seconds. That's really, really low. And the average human, because our attention span is so low, what happens is we can't stay focused, right? So we look at our phone, or we're digging through other papers, we're looking at other things, we're glancing around. I'm very visually distracted, and so oftentimes I'm looking, right? If I'm in a meeting and somebody walks past the door, that catches my attention, and now I'm not focused right here. Research shows that the average human looks at their phone 1,500 times per week. It keeps us disconnected from our own inner thoughts, and it makes us careless in our interactions with each other. And then what happens is that internal mental chatter starts to take over. And that's what leads to our false perceptions and our mental distortions, which leads to emotional distress. And so our stress response system then becomes activated more frequently, and that causes reactivity. So when we think about what are we focusing on? And when you think about your interactions throughout the day, You know, and I like to bring this back home. I like to bring it to your family because at the end of the day, when we're really drained, we've put in a long day at work. You know, that's a really tough time, right? Because you're tired, you're drained, your mental capacity is low. And so how do we reboot before we walk in that door with the ones that we love the most so that we don't become careless with those that we care about the most? The way we think really does impact and affect our life. So if have you ever noticed that when you think in a negative way, it impacts your ability to move forward? Do you ever feel a lack of motivation? When we tell ourselves something in particular, what often happens is our brains won't allow us to notice the positive impacts. So we continue to focus on the negative. It's just the way our brains work. When somebody talks about mindfulness or meditation, what happens is we often want to see those big results. We want to see them right away. But if you believe it won't work, are you going to notice the small changes? The way your body relaxes, the way maybe your muscles don't feel quite as tense as it did when you started. When you close your eyes and you take a deep breath, do you notice the impact that has on your emotional state, on your physical state? Mindfulness doesn't need to be time consuming, and you don't need to shut off your brain or do it all the time. Clearly, we need to plan for the future and learn from our past, right? But mindfulness just helps us reconnect in that present moment for a moment to help us recenter and reground. So a lot of these things that are up here, this won't work. I've heard that a lot when I talk about mindfulness. It doesn't work for me because I can't shut my brain off. You don't have to shut your brain off. And that's the wonderful thing about it. You don't need to do it all the time. You don't have to set aside an hour a day for mindfulness or for meditation. And it doesn't have to be meditation. So what are the benefits? When we start talking about what does mindfulness do when we believe it can work? So there's a few things up here. It does reduce your stress. It makes the big things seem less big. It increases your immune system, which is something we could all use. We work with children, right? And so having an increased immune system is wonderful. I know every time we would get a new student, it was like everybody in the class got sick. I remember new teachers when they would start, within the first month, they had everything under the sun because they had to build that immunity, right? And so this is something that naturally helps build our immune system. It increases our emotional regulation. And for all of you brain people out there, it decreases the activation of the amygdala and increases the function of the prefrontal cortex. It increases your memory, it increases resiliency. Other benefits that come along with it is increased creativity, which when we are working with young children, sometimes creativity can be really, really hard. But when you practice mindfulness on a regular basis, it's going to help increase your creativity. It reverses the effects of aging. There has been science research that has been done that when you utilize mindfulness, it actually reverses the effects of aging for very specific reasons. It promotes better sleep. So when you're getting better sleep, you're reducing the effects of aging. When you're reducing your stress and increasing your immune system, you're reducing the impacts of aging. It increases your oxygen and your blood flow. And it restores your body back to its natural and basic biorhythms. It increases your skin health, and it helps us become more kind and more compassionate. Aren't those things that we would love to see from people? I think about everything that's going on in the world right now. And that's what where is the kindness and the compassion for one another? Right? And so this is a way that we can at least make small changes in the world. Mindfulness and meditation are similar, but they are very different at the same time. Mindfulness can be used within meditation. They do overlap. Meditation is going to be that formal practice, and mindfulness is intentionally focusing on a present moment. So you can use mindfulness within meditation because you're going to be focused in on those present moments. So they do have that overlapping. Both practices are life skills that give you tools to access that inner peace that everybody is looking for, which is already inside of us. We just have to figure out how to get there. It helps, both practices rely on the ability to be focused on the present moment. Because let's be real, we can't experience peace in the moment when we are regretting the past or we're worrying about the future. And both practices offer a way to increase happiness and decrease suffering. Merging the two practices can be done, and it's one of the most beneficial stress management tools that are out there. When we talk about stress management, I know I do a lot of, how do you manage your stress? I have a stress management for caregivers training. I have an encouraging the encourager training. I have a from contention to calm training. All of these types of trainings. When I started working on my meditation and my mindfulness certification, these two practices coming together it's really about what we are looking for in order for us to be able to find what we need. There's a lot of strategies that you can do for self-care. This one is really about not just going and getting your nails done or getting your hair done, right? Not just caring it for ourselves that way, but this one's really about caring for our internal self. There are two main components to mindfulness. One is focused attention, and another is open monitoring. Focused attention is focusing on a single object for a sustained period of time and actively noticing when the mind wanders. So this is really done in a moment without judgment. Because when we go back to our definition, we're really talking about being able to be present in the moment without judgment. And so we're going to notice our thoughts, but we aren't going to judge those thoughts. And we're going to pull our attention back to that single object and let that thought go. So that's when we're really trying to focus our attention on a single object. Open monitoring is a little different. It's non-reactive and non-directive attention given to an overall experience. So we are just, when you are in that moment and you're having a great time and taking a checklist, right? Not reacting, not directing your attention, but just noticing and openly monitoring all of those things around you. when we look at the 4 foundations of mindfulness, what we're looking at here is, the first one is mindfulness of the body. So what does that mean? That's going to be your physical sensations. Your physical sensations are going to be where is the tension in your body? So if you just kind of sit back a little bit in your chair and just notice, where is the discomfort in your body? Do you have tension in your shoulders or in your neck, right? In your lower back, maybe your knees or your hips? We're just noticing those physical sensations. The second one is mindfulness of the feelings. So this is going to be what you taste, touch, and smell. This is not your emotions. So if you're taking notice of your feelings, how are your clothes sitting on you? Like my sweatshirt's a little bit up around my neck here, right? So I'm just noticing. What do you smell? What do you taste? Just noticing, not judging it, but just noticing. The third foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the consciousness. So this is the act of breathing. When we are talking about the act of breathing, we are not talking about controlling your breathing. Oftentimes you hear, take a deep breath, right? And you hear that belly breathing and all kinds of different types of breathing techniques, which are very beneficial and very helpful. But when we're talking mindfulness, we want to start with just noticing. Notice your breathing and feeling it, feeling the rise and the fall of your breath. Don't try to control it. Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing through your nose? And just notice. These are things that we can absolutely do just sitting at our desk, right? Just becoming aware of our body, of our senses, of our breathing. The fourth one is the contemplation of mind objects. So this is going to be sensory perception and emotions. So this is when you're going to go, okay, I need to check in. How am I feeling right now? How's that light? Is the sun too bright? Is it impacting my eyes? Am I starting to squint? Do my clothes feel too tight maybe? That sensory of that. Am I cold? Am I hot? So we're really going to start taking in that sensory information and the emotional information as well. Finally, when you're practicing mindfulness, it's important to remember that when negative thoughts do enter, you're going to return your focus to your breathing. You're going to go back and notice your breathing. You can count your breaths, and then you're going to let those negative thoughts go. This is going to help teach us to disconnect our inner self from those nagging thoughts that we constantly have, right? I love to do this at night when I'm laying in bed, because I can go, nope, not going to think, not thinking about what I didn't do, not thinking about what I need to do tomorrow. I'm going to go back to my breathing. I'm going to focus on my breathing. I'm going to count my breathing. And the next thing I know, I'm asleep, right? So it helps kind of shut down that mind chatter that we so often have going on. How are you guys doing? Giving you a lot of information. Are there any questions so far before we go into how to do this? Like what do you do? How do you do it? That's our next thing that we're going to be doing, but I would love if you guys have questions about this so far.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I am paying attention to I have begun to pay much more attention to the mindfulness of the conscious act of breathing, because we are, sometimes I get so overwhelmed and I get so tensed up. It's like, you don't even realize that you're holding your breath.
Yeah.
And I am becoming especially more conscious, just starting my morning with some breathing exercises, or when I'm feeling stressed out or I'm taking on too much, just kind of getting in a place where I can just really breathe. I think I pay a lot of attention to how I'm breathing, whether it's, I don't know, I think because I've been taught you should breathe through your nose and the rise and all of that. And I'm trying to get that right and really just breathe and give myself a chance just to let go of whatever it is that is bothering me. So this is awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think you're right. I think when we get into into those moments, those stressful moments, you're absolutely right. We do hold our breath and we don't realize, or we start breathing really shallow, which actually impacts our brain's ability to function, because now we're not getting the oxygen that our brain needs, right? And Kathy, it is a lot like meditation. Remember, they're very closely related, but mindfulness, it can be done in a moment. It can be done quickly. Meditation, we usually want to set aside a little bit more time and to have that focused attention. There is so much, Angie, so much mindfulness. It's really trying to not judge. I think that's the hardest piece. And it has been linked to reduced levels of depression and anxiety. There is it's combined in some cases with behavior therapy, like the cognitive behavior therapy. There are therapies out there that utilize mindfulness in order to help with that anxiety and depression too. So we are going to, what I'm going to talk about here are some different mindfulness activities. The first one we kind of did already. We just did that as I walked through the foundations. It's called an hourglass meditation. And it's just being aware of those physical bodily sensations. You're going to be observant of the movement of your body that's created by breathing. So often in meditation, they want you to control your breathing, right? You're going to breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. With mindfulness, it's just really about being aware of how you're breathing and then accepting all of the sensations in your whole body. So often I think, we want to go, oh, my back hurts, right? I need to twist, I need to move because my back is really tight, rather than just being like, yeah, my back is a little sore right now and I'm just going to accept that. We don't just accept those bodily sensations. We feel like we need to fix it. An awareness exercise is our second one up here. This is going to be observation or conscious awareness of negative emotions. So we're going to be very mindful of the emotions that we might feel. And they really talk about this as you're going to let them build and then you're going to let them break like a wave, and we're going to ride it, right? So we can't avoid negative emotions. We have to feel them. And so being aware of how it feels when we have them and just riding it and letting us feel it and then letting it go. We have to let it go. Walking meditation is actually a mindfulness practice. For those of you that have heard of walking meditation, That's where you're going to go outside, you're going to walk around, you're going to enjoy nature, you're going to notice things, you're going to feel the wind, you're going to feel the sun, you're going to feel the way the ground feels under your feet. You're going to notice all of those things. You're going to hear the birds, you're going to see the trees, you're going to watch the way the wind blows through the leaves. These types of things, that's a walking meditation. When you do get those negative thoughts, we're going to acknowledge it and let it go. Mindful eating is another one. I think eating is something that we have taught ourselves to do absent-mindedly. We don't really put a lot of thought into the way food tastes. Oftentimes it's salad, whatever, and we rush through our lunches so that we can get back to our training that starts at 1 o'clock, right? And so we absently eat our lunch, or we absently eat our dinner. Sometimes I have heard of people who stress eat. I might be a little guilty of that one. I'm also a little guilty of forgetting to eat when I'm really stressed out. Then I'll overeat because I feel really hungry. And so when we are mindfully eating, we're going to notice our body, not our boy. We're going to notice our body. That is a little typo that is on my slide. And the senses of the food. So it helps us become aware of what our external and internal cues are that compel us to eat. Are we eating that snack before bed because we're actually hungry? Or is it a habit? Are we reaching for that piece of chocolate because chocolate sounds good, or is it because we're stressed out? Right? So when we're mindfully eating, we're noticing what compels us to eat. We're also noticing the food when we eat it. We're noticing how it feels. We're noticing how it smells. We notice how it tastes. And if you've ever had those moments where you have had something that is so amazing and so phenomenal and you were not expecting it and you're like, wow, this is really good, right? And it pulls us into that moment, but doing that more often and doing it intentionally. Mindful breathing, we've talked about that one a little bit. Progressive muscle relaxation is another one. So this one is going to work you through all of your every muscle group in your body, and you tense that muscle group, and then you hold it, and then you relax, and you release all of the tension that's in your body. You can find really good progressive muscle relaxation videos on YouTube for free. They're wonderful. I do them in some of my trainings. This is one of those things where I have had people tell me it does not work because they cannot sit still. I have also had people that go through like guided visualizations tell me it doesn't work because they cannot turn off their brains, right? And so we're just, I think these are really great ways to focus our brains in by focusing in on our breathing and each muscle group individually. But again, finding that strategy that is what works for you. Alternate nostril breathing. This one was something I had never heard of before, but it's actually a really cool thing, and it helps for those that maybe have anxiety or panic attacks. This type of breathing is really powerful for pulling people out of that. So if you are one that experiences panic attacks or anxiety attacks, or you have somebody in your world that experiences that, alternate nostril breathing is really a good strategy for in that moment. So what you do is you make a Y with your thumb and your pinky finger like this. And you're going to cover one nostril with your thumb, and you're going to inhale through the other side. You hold, and then you exhale. And then you hold, and then you inhale. Switch, exhale. So you're going to go back and forth. Inhale, switch, exhale, inhale, switch, exhale. And so this is just so that you could do the back and forth really easily. It helps because you have to be very focused on what you're doing, right? I have to inhale, I'm going to hold it. Now I'm going to switch and I'm going to exhale. And so it gets you to be very present in the moment. And so when you have somebody who is experiencing a panic attack or anxiety attack, it's usually because they're not in the moment, right? Or there's all this external stimuli that's overwhelming them. And so it helps them focus their attention in on their breathing, and it helps pull them out of that panic or anxiety attack. I'm going to read through some of your guys' comments here because I love this. I love being able to see what you guys are saying, and I did not have the chat box up here. So I just want to take a moment and read through what you guys are saying. Love the mindful moments, Kathy. Yes, good. It does, Tamara, it does improve your ability to focus because you're really staying in that moment, right? And so you're activating your prefrontal cortex and you're settling down your amygdala. And our amygdala is like the wild animal of our brain, right? And so when we can settle down that wild animal, it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to move forward. All right, guys. So I have one more thing. I just had children walk into my house, so they all had to wave at me. So, but they are being very quiet. So we're going to finish up today with an activity. There we go. Nope, I went too far. Let me back up one. So this one, we're really going to focus in on the mindful breathing. This is a video that I did pull straight from YouTube. So it's something that can be used from there. So I want everybody to kind of settle in, and we are going to do some mindful breathing together.
Mindful breathing.
Can you
Close
guys
your
hear
eyes
it?
and rest your hands on your knees. Bring your attention to the touch of your body on your seat. Feel the weight of your body on your chair or cushion. Make sure that your back is straight and that you're comfortable. Take a few deep breaths. While you're breathing deeply, relax your shoulders, your stomach muscles, the muscles in your face, your hands, and your legs. Let go of all the tightness in your body. Now bring your attention back to your breath. Notice what it feels like as it enters through your nose, goes down through your throat, filling your lungs, and back out through your nose. Notice your stomach and chest rise and fall each time you breathe in and each time you breathe out. And just allow breathing to be natural and relaxed. Now bring your attention to the feeling of your breath in your nose. Feel your breath as it comes in and goes out. Just focus on this sensation, paying attention to each time you breathe in and each time you breathe out. As you inhale, maybe your breath feels cool. And as you exhale, maybe it feels a little warmer. When your mind wanders, or if you become distracted, just notice what's going on in your head, and then gently bring your attention back to your breath, going in and out. Focus on the feeling of your breath and allow thoughts and feelings to come and go in the background. Now gently bring your attention back to the touch of your body on your seat and open your eyes.
All right, how's everyone feeling after that? That was a very short one. It was only 3 minutes. Good, Nancy. I'm glad that you found that very relaxing. Hopefully nobody fell asleep. I knew I was getting the after lunch time space. So I didn't want to do a really long one because I was afraid you guys might fall asleep because it is kind of nap time. Right? So, all right, guys. That is what I have for you today. One other strategy I wanted to share with you that I thought when I was looking at mindfulness and I was getting my certification that I thought was really neat. When you're at your desk and you need to recenter and you need to refocus, one of the strategies is to tap your finger 3 times on your thumb. So you go each finger 3 times, and then you go to the other hand. And then you go backwards. And so it's something that, because you have to count the taps and you have to pay attention to what you're doing, it helps refocus, recenter, and bring you back into the moment. So that was one more strategy that I didn't have on the slides that I wanted to share with you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Rachel. I enjoyed that a lot. There were a lot of good comments in the chat. I think even though it was right after lunch, it was a focused relaxation. So it didn't really put me to sleep. That was
Good.
great.
Hopefully it energized you for your next sessions, right? So that